Would you please be seated? My name is Rachel Harvey, and Maddy was my senior assistant in pre-calculus this year. It was a joy to have her. I really enjoyed getting to know Maddy a lot better than I did coming into this year. Seated with us today is Mr. Blackburn and Mrs. Miller, who will also be on the panel. Would you please bow your heads, and I'll start us off in prayer. Lord, we are before you today. We thank you for today. We thank you for Maddy. We look to you in this next hour. We ask for your blessing. We ask for your presence. Just be here with us and calm any nerves that Maddy has. And Lord, we just look to enjoy her thesis and what she has to say with ears to hear. Amen.
Have you ever had a big dream or goal that you want to accomplish, but eventually you just give up? This could range from starting a business to getting in shape, or from starting to eat healthier to reading the Bible every day. We have often thought to ourselves, oh, I'll start this big task tomorrow, or today isn't the best day to start. But then the next day or month rolls around, and eventually we just give up. Why is this a habit of ours? If we have enough motivation to do something, why is it that we don't always follow through? Let's explore this by defining two terms that have something to do with this issue. First, motivation. Merriam-Webster defines it as the act or process of giving someone a reason for doing something, or a force or influence that causes someone to do something. To put it in more scientific terms, it is our psychological intrinsic thoughts which push us towards an objective. So basically, motivation pushes you towards an objective when you start to feel like you want to give up. Motivation is involved in everything that we do in life, from getting a glass of water, weight loss, or homework. However, it is often overlooked that there are two different kinds of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation comes from within, from internal desires, and is satisfied when it is internally rewarded. Extrinsic motivation is initiated externally, when an outside variable creates a reason or incentive for motivation. There are at least 5 other types of motivation: reward-based, fear-based, achievement-based, power-based, and affiliation-based. These are all real, but can fit inside the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation categories. Multiple studies have shown that intrinsic motivation is the best form of motivation, because when we're motivated to do something out of our own want or will, we're most likely to achieve it. Think about it. We usually find a way to get what we want, right? Motivation can turn into action, but only when our desires are strong enough to push us. To get anything done, we need a reason, and with a good enough reason, we can do almost anything, right? The other term that has a lot to do with burning out, giving up, or just losing interest is self-discipline. Merriam-Webster defines it as the correction or regulation of oneself for the sake of improvement. It is how we keep ourselves on the right path when we're losing sight of our objective. So self-discipline is our subconscious keeping us on the right track. It keeps us undistracted from a very distracting world. There are 3 main kinds of self-discipline: active, reactive, and proactive. Active discipline is doing what you need to do in that moment to achieve your goals, such as eating a healthy meal, limiting your distractions while doing homework, or going to the gym. Reactive discipline is making a conscious decision on your actions when something outside of your control has happened to you, like getting a flat tire, dealing with rude people, or locking your keys in your car. And lastly, proactive discipline is doing something in advance to better control a situation in the future, like bringing an umbrella on a potentially rainy day or creating a to-do list. Proactive discipline is the best form of self-discipline because when we're prepared for the future, we're most likely to succeed. The 2 other kinds of self-discipline are also used. Like, for example, when our proactive measures fail, we need reactive self-discipline to get us back on track. They're each needed, but used in separate ways. Now that I've gone over the definitions of motivation and self-discipline, you may be wondering, why should I really care, or what does this have to do with my life specifically? You see, the 2 are involved in everything we do in life, from exercise, eating healthy, learning a new subject, going to church, saving your money, reading the Bible, or praying every morning. It affects everything we do in life, directly or indirectly. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. These are the wise words of Plato. By conquering ourselves, we're to deny our natural human instincts, as they can often lead us towards bad or negative outcomes. Self-discipline is the same. We are to deny what our emotions and desires typically lead us towards, because typically they lead us towards the easiest path, but that doesn't always mean it's the best path. Discipline can be described as the daily execution of the right tasks that lead you towards success. Does this sound familiar? We can see this in the Bible, in Luke chapter 9, verse 23. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. As Christians, we are to deny our flesh and make a conscious decision to follow God daily. It takes tons of self-discipline to follow God, and two people that exemplify self-discipline in their relationship with the Lord are my grandparents, Grandma and Granddad. In every single thing they do, they put God first, including their health, their relationship, and the love that they show towards others. I'm sure they would agree that putting God first in all of this takes tons of self-discipline. Since motivation and self-discipline are both used in daily life, how do they interact or connect with each other? I'll use an example of an Olympic sprinter. This athlete dreams their whole life of becoming an Olympic champion. That is their motivation. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are motivated to do every single workout or go to every single practice. They need self-discipline to complete and even to begin every workout. Think of it like this. Self-discipline can reassign the original motivation. Award-winning bodybuilder Lizzie Tavares says, "Motivation helps you initiate building the habits necessary to reach your goal. To me, discipline is the process of building the habits necessary to reach whatever goal it is you want." You see, discipline focuses on the what to do, while motivation focuses on the why you do something. You can have a lot of reasons to do something, but without self-discipline to consistently act, we will never succeed. Self-discipline is control over our emotions, impulses, and behaviors. Motivation is more emotional, and therefore more uncontrollable. It is important to see that motivation can be good or bad. We can be motivated to do bad things. Our motivations can be changed or influenced to deceive us. However, if we have self-discipline, we can know the difference between good and bad choices in relation to the goals we're striving for. The two main reasons humans do anything is to avoid pain and gain pleasure. The catch is that our minds like to trick us. We can often mistake good things as pain and bad things as pleasure. For example, gossiping, speeding, or drinking excessively are examples of bad things our minds often mistake as pleasure. Learning, waking up early, or exercise are examples of good things our minds often mistake as pain. In Great Books 2, we learn that all men strive for some good, according to Aristotle. This good may look good to us, but in reality is bad for our goals, like staying out late when you know you have a big test in the morning. This explains why we may think that something is good for our goals is actually bad. Recognition of and changing these behaviors brings a better result. However, it is not always easy. To break habits and form new ones, we need the motivation to do so and the self-discipline to stay consistent. Even though we think avoiding the pain and chasing the pleasure may be good, we must remember that the nature of man is sinful. Romans chapter 8, verse 5 says, "For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit." When our hearts and minds are not set on the Spirit, we will desire the things of this world. But even constantly setting our minds on God takes tons of self-discipline. If we were to solely rely on just motivation to achieve our goals, we would soon experience burnout, which is when our motivation dies. However, if we were to solely rely on just self-discipline to achieve our goals, we could also soon experience burnout or just be miserable in the process. When you use only one, you face issues, but when you use them both together, success is inevitable. Staying consistent takes self-discipline. Consistency shows you results, which in turn can provide another level of motivation. We already know that motivation is involved in everything that we do in life. But how can we control motivation and self-discipline and use them to be successful? Think of self-discipline as a muscle. You must exercise it to gain more of it. And in the same way, if we don't exercise it, we lose our ability to use it, like how a muscle can atrophy when not used for a while. Consider these two methods that use both motivation and self-discipline to help us achieve our goals. The first is a goal-setting method. When you have a big goal, to avoid it from feeling overwhelming or impossible at first, we can think of smaller goals to lead us to our bigger goal. Think of it as rungs on a ladder. If we want to reach a tall place, a ladder is helpful because the steps are smaller. Now, realistically, we may be motivated to achieve the big goal, but not necessarily the little ones, like the Olympic sprinter. This is where self-discipline comes in. We are to use it to rally ourselves to begin the small step. Or in other words, we need self-discipline to stir up our own motivation to achieve the little goals that will eventually lead us to our bigger goal. The second method helps us learn and practice self-discipline. In the book Motivation versus Discipline by Brian Root, he explains a 6-step process to this. First, we can expose our minds to positive influences, such as podcasts, audiobooks, quotes, or people. Second, he says to determine how badly you want your desired goal. If your why is strong enough, you will have enough strength to follow through on the what you need to do. Thirdly, he says you can visualize yourself having the self-discipline necessary to achieve your goal. And next, he says to set smaller goals, which will lead to your bigger goal. The fifth step is to attain accountability, either from a friend or a parent. Lastly, he says to get to work and to act now. Success in anything, including our health, finances, spiritual life, and relationships, requires both motivation and self-discipline to work together. If we are motivated in something to be successful in it long term, we need self-discipline to keep us on track. We can do this by setting smaller goals or by following Root's 6-step process. Motivation and self-discipline working together is the key to success. So get to work and be successful.
How do you feel?
Fine.
Fine, well done. Nice job. I want to start by asking, what are your plans upcoming?
I plan to attend Stephen F. Austin and pursue a degree in business and hopefully a minor in psychology as well.
Okay. What made you choose Stephen F. Austin?
I don't really know. To be honest, I kind of want to get out of West Texas. So that was a big factor. And just looking at it, it seems like a fun place.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask because I know we had a conversation where you said you either are the farthest east or the second farthest east out of all the seniors leaving this year.
I'm pretty sure I'm the furthest.
Okay. I would imagine many people in here don't know that this is your second thesis topic.
Yes.
You were actually on the ball all year, made my job easy, and after you turned in your rough draft in February and we discussed it for 20 minutes, meaning I told you a bunch of things, then you said, I don't want to do this. I want to change topics.
Yep.
And I was thinking you could have interrupted me at any time.
Sorry.
So would you want to let us know maybe what the first topic was?
So I was originally going to do science versus Christianity and just explore that further. And yeah, I don't know. The reason I switched was because I was pursuing that more out of like curiosity, and then like once I found my answer I was satisfied with it, I guess. But then I realized that I was more like passionate about this topic, and I figured as an underclassman or an MCA student that probably needed to hear this, I should probably tell them this.
Okay. I want to ask, I guess my first question is, can you think of a time, high school, junior high, where you had to kind of dig deep for some motivation or self-discipline or the two together to maybe achieve a goal? And maybe you succeeded or you failed.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind was my sophomore year, in the spring semester of the sophomore year. Miss Miller brought the next year varsity volleyball players and basically told us our roles that we would play on the team, and she basically told me that I probably wouldn't play and I would just serve in that way. And so this lit a fire under me, and so I was motivated to, play the next year. But there were definitely like times over the summer that I was not motivated to do every workout or do everything that I had to do, but I needed self-discipline to do all that.
How did it turn out?
I think good, successful. I played the next year, so.
Okay. Can you think of a time where you might have failed?
Yes. This one's more in like homework. I don't think I'd be described at Ncaa right now as the most diligent, studious student. There's definitely been a couple classes where I've just let them, set them to the side and was not diligent or had no self-discipline in doing my homework for that. So.
Okay. I want to kind of change gears here a little bit. In your thesis, you say motivation is more emotional and therefore more uncontrollable than self-discipline. What are some emotions that come to mind considering motivation?
My first thought is anger. If we're angry, we can be motivated to do bad things, like not to get this serious, but that's why a lot of murderers or serial killers are motivated to kill, is because they are angry at something.
Okay, can you think of anything others? Any others?
Probably my volleyball situation, just just not believing in yourself or not feeling like the underdog, basically. But I guess that could kind of be related to anger.
Okay. I ask because my first, I have two that come to mind. One would be anxiety. The moment I get motivated to do something, before I can even come up with a plan, I'm just kind of or that, or maybe the high of it. I'm super pumped up and I'm super charged and I'm ready to go. And so those are two conflicting emotions. And so the reason I bring this up is because I think that when we're presented with a goal, maybe something that we created inside of us, or maybe a bar that somebody else has set for us, to be the contrarian can motivation and self-discipline be a bad thing?
I think in some ways it definitely can be. We can be motivated to do bad things, and then we can lose sight of what's good in life, and what we had self-discipline in can be changed for bad. But I think if we're self-disciplined or have discipline and diligence in God's word, then we will know the true good and bad.
Okay. A phrase that I came across is the tyranny of the should. I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And even when you mention these rungs of a ladder, the tyranny of the should would be more or less mortgaging our present lives for the future. And so if we're constantly striving for that next step, could we be missing the here?
I think definitely. I think there's definitely a time to stop and be in the moment and not be all gung-ho on our goals. So I think there's definitely a time to rest and a time to live in the moment. We just have to learn the balance between them.
How can we do that?
I think that's difficult. That's why some seniors touch on it in their theses as well. I don't know, I guess just learning yourself and learning when you feel emotionally drained or tired or putting it in your routine. These days I'm just going to relax and rest so our minds can be at rest and reset.
Do you think it's okay to backslide?
What do you mean?
Well, if we're talking about balance and we're talking about rest, there's also the concept of falling off the wagon, more or less. And so if we are trying to achieve, a series of small steps towards a bigger goal, do you think it's okay to backslide?
I think it's probably not ideal, but I think it happens, and I think if we just learn to move past it and do better, then I think it's fine.
What would you say to somebody that might have backslid?
I don't know.
I mean, I imagine this person would probably be down. Do you think that there's anything that you can say? And I don't really mean like you're the sidelines cheerleader. I mean in the context of a meaningful conversation.
I don't know if I'm really the wisest with advice, but I don't know. I can't think of like words to say right now, but I can really only think of that like we can, like as a friend, we could be there with them and help them through it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of any like phrase off the top of my head.
Okay. I'll pass it on.
Well, Maddy, I was having a basketball open gym this summer, probably a couple summers ago, so I can attest to the fact that you had the self-discipline to, you were coming in all by yourself and setting up the volleyball net all by yourself and doing some kind of drill all by yourself. And I was thinking, I didn't know you could do volleyball all by yourself like that. But and then I got to see you play the last 2 years, and I was just really impressed. Like you said, that discipline's the daily execution of the right things and tasks that lead us to success. And I just saw you and your teammates demonstrate that. Just a consistency that no matter how a particular game was going or a match was going, you guys just had the same demeanor and the same facial expressions. And I don't know what's going on inside the mind, but it seemed like you had some habits that kept you consistent. So really want to commend you on that.
Thank you.
So you said that our emotions and desires typically lead us towards an easiest path, and you gave some examples yourself. What would you say about emotions? Are they more proactive or more reactive, your emotions?
I think our emotions are more reactive, or we tend to react to them more or act on them. Yeah.
I would agree with you that just all of a sudden you start feeling a certain way. It's hard to choose the way you feel. Mm-hmm. So are emotions good or bad?
I think emotions in the middle. I think that there's definitely a balance, and we have to learn how to handle our emotions and feel them and not just like shove them away. Yeah. So I think they definitely can be good, and there's exceptions. They can be bad, but for the most part, I'd say good.
Mm-hmm. So are emotions more trustworthy or more untrustworthy? Can you trust what your emotions are telling you?
This reminds me of a conversation we had in psychology. There's I forgot exactly what it is, but there's a process we should do when we feel a really strong emotion. It's we should feel, think, act, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
we feel our emotions first, and then think about if they're right or true, or if they're valid, and then act on it. Mm-hmm. Not think, feel, act, where we're acting on our emotions.
Yeah, some people say take 3 deep breaths. That's that thinking time to let your logic take over rather than just your emotions. And so many times our emotions bring back some past experience that we're reminded of that, and all of a sudden we're like the deer in the headlights kind of feeling, and I need to fight or flight, but we're allowed our mind to take over, so some time is good. You talked about self-discipline. What are the roles of the spiritual disciplines in self-discipline?
I think of prayer mostly, praying to God that He will give us strength to follow through on what we need to do, and just to rely on Him through prayer mostly.
Mm-hmm. And then you talked about goals quite a bit. How do we set good goals?
Well, this could go two ways. You could either set goals as far as this world, either weight loss or getting good grades, or goals spiritually. And I think they can both intertwine, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I think if we're based strongly enough in God, then our goals will lead towards good.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of Isaiah 2:3, and it says, "Come, let's climb God's mountain. Let's go to the house of the God of Jacob." And so it's saying, let's look at God. He will show us the way He works, so the way God operates, so that we can walk in His paths. And the Message paraphrases that and says, so that we can live the way we're made. Can you react to that statement that we should set our goals by looking at who God is and the way He works, so that we can live the way we're made?
Yeah, it kind of just reminded me of the verse I brought up was where if we set our minds on the things of this world, we'll desire the things of this world, but if we set our eyes on the things of the Spirit, we'll desire the things of the Spirit. So if our eyes are on God and we're trusting God, we can know that our goals in this world will line up with His goals, or His plan, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a really easy thing to say in this setting. How are you going to be able to live that out at Stephen F. Austin when there's going to be a lot of competing voices saying that you kind of got brainwashed in being in a Christian environment? Look at these other thoughts. Look at these other ways of doing it. Have you given thought about what it's going to be like post-high school?
I definitely have, and I've tried to consider or just look at all the views and angles of everything, so I'm more prepared on how to handle situations like that. I think apologetics this year has helped greatly, so yeah, I think it'll be more difficult than here, but I don't think it'll be too crazy. We'll see, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll pray God's blessings on you.
Okay, Maddy. So, as your volleyball coach this year, and the past, 3-4 seasons, you had some motivations going into your senior season. What was the motivation, and then what were some disciplines you had throughout the season, I guess, to see that motivation through?
I think the main one that all the seniors shared was to make it to state. And I think that you did a good job of reminding us every practice that in order to do that, we need to work on the basics and stay disciplined on the things we know how to do in order to go there.
Okay. And Mr. Blackburn, and you referenced that the summer before your junior year, you spent a lot of time in the gym, and you made a huge jump from your sophomore season to your junior season. But that didn't always translate into playing time, because there were 4 or 5 seniors ahead of you. Were there times you said, this wasn't my motivation, and the discipline I did that previous, it wasn't worth it?
Definitely not. I was very proud of myself. I still am, for the work I put in, and I'm even if I had no playing time, I probably would have been a little disappointed, but I couldn't have been too disappointed because I guess he prepared me for that. But yeah, looking back, I was definitely not disappointed in anything.
Okay. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And then my other kind of in talking in page 5, you're kind of marrying the two, motivation and salvation, and discipline and how they work together. And so, if I have a heart attack, that's motivation to start being disciplined on the way I live my life. And then spiritually, what's the motivation for coming to Christ? Usually,
I think it could be like our sin, or being convicted of our sins and realizing that we've done wrong or lived wrong thus far.
Okay. Are there some, I guess, judgments that might cause us to be motivated? Like when I was little, I was 8 years old, the motivation mainly for coming to Christ was simply not going to hell. And then you start living, and you're like, okay, is it? You start reflecting and growing deeper, and I think that's where the discipline comes in. It's like that motivation alone isn't going to grow you. It's the discipline after you realize that motivation that's going to sustain you and keep you following Christ. So looking at the different types of discipline, that's what's going to sustain us. There's two different types. When I see the definition for discipline in the Bible, there tends to be two different types of discipline that it's talking about in different passages. Do you know what and you mentioned a little bit.
Maybe. I don't know. I probably do, but I can't think of it.
Okay, so I like in Hebrews 12. Let me find it. It says, Hebrews 12:5. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as the sons. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives. And so there's a correction aspect to discipline. And then there's the self-discipline. How does that, the correction part of discipline, play into the self-discipline, I guess?
I think of it kind of as like self-discipline. We're telling ourselves what to do, or like what is the right thing to do, but someone else disciplining us or something is them telling us like, this probably isn't good, you should do this, and them correcting our original behavior, I guess.
Okay. I'll come back to my next idea.
Thank you. I think I want to piggyback off that a little bit. I can't remember if it was fall or spring, but one day you had a T-shirt on and it said "Overcomer," and it made me think of a verse in Revelation. I asked you about it, and I think your Bible verse on the back was John. I'm not sure, but I was remembering John 16:33. It says, "I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take courage, I have overcome the world." And so your T-shirt took a verb and made it a noun and changed it to overcomer. The verse I was thinking of in Revelation chapter 3, and I'm going to paraphrase because it's about 5 verses. It's 17 to 22. Something along the lines of, do you not know you're poor, you're wretched, blind, naked? And then the very next verse says, buy from me gold refined by fire. As many as I love, I reprove and discipline. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, then I will come into him. And then 22, he who overcomes, to him I will give to sit with me on my throne. That was the verse I was thinking of, to he who overcomes. But I wanted to piggyback off of what Mrs. Miller was saying about the idea of discipline, because this here says, as many as I love, I reprove and I discipline. Are there some ways that you feel you have been disciplined by the Lord that come to mind?
I think there's many. I think God, I guess, mostly influenced me, I feel like, through other people in my life, and disciplined me in that way and showed me the right things to do in that way through other people.
Okay. And then this might be a little bit of an offshoot of that. Before I said, do you not know you are poor and wretched and blind and naked? And then it turns around, buy from me gold. How do you do that?
I think this is kind of the same answer-ish, but just through God. Like, I don't know, we can't do anything, we can't overcome or become gold or pure. It's only through God that we can do that.
Okay.
I don't know if that really answers it, but...
I'm not sure either. I was just kind of struck that on the one verse it says, you have this condition. And on the next verse it says, do this, and no, you can't because you have this condition. But going back to the verse that you quoted from Romans, the next verse, what did you say? Romans 8:5. Romans 8:6 says, for the mindset on the flesh is death, but the mindset on the spirit is life and peace. And then verse 9, it's clausal. But you are not in the flesh, but in the spirit, comma, if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you. We have this big if indeed, because we believe in the Lord and we have His Spirit dwelling inside of us. There are many people who don't, and yet they're still trying to practice some form of self-discipline or discipline. Maybe it's just to be a better person. Maybe it's to achieve a goal. Maybe it's to raise their kids upright. It's curious to me how I guess in practice, in our day-to-day, how can there be these two big differences? If I'm trying to have this discipline and I have the Lord, and somebody else is trying to do the same thing without the Lord. What would you say to somebody?
I think the main difference is one side you can feel fulfilled after you complete your goal, and the other side you can't or may not. Like with God, even if our goals are like of this world and we're not, like they're not necessarily spiritual goals, we can still like have peace throughout the process and trust His plan, but we'll feel more fulfilled at the end as compared to someone who probably isn't Christian or doesn't follow God. They might not feel as fulfilled.
Okay. And then I have one more question before I pass on. You said in your paper, if we do not exercise self-discipline, our ability to utilize it diminishes, like how a muscle might atrophy when it remains sedentary. I guess in the context of fitness, you can have a depth of fitness. It's one thing to do something for 45 minutes, and it's another to do this activity for 3 hours, and for your body to withstand that and to still perform and perform and perform. And so you have to develop this multi-layer dimension. Are there other areas in life where we need to develop this multi-layer, just sort of depth of self-discipline? You kind of mentioned some things throughout your paper, if it's reading the Bible, if it's finances, if it's a healthy living, relationships. But so many people today are just one and done, check mark and go. But are there instances where we should be looking to create these multi-layer depths of self-discipline?
I mean, yes. I can't really think of others besides the ones I've already mentioned in my paper, but I don't know if I fully understand what you're saying, but
I guess I'm just maybe asking for the long term. If it's one thing for me, let's go back to the fitness thing, because that's a pretty good analogy, to show up and do awesome for 45 minutes. And then on another instance, I have to show up and I have to do awesome for 3 hours. That's a big difference, just on output. So let's say with relationships, for example, how can we keep coming back to this and kind of establishing this multi-layer depth?
like with being friends with someone?
Yeah, being friends with someone, or even with your parents, because you're about to be across the state.
I guess just being intentional in your relationship with them. I think if you're intentional and you truly love them or care about them or want to be friends with them, then those things might come naturally.
What does that look like for you, being intentional?
I don't know. It looks different for the different people that I'm close with. Like, some of my friends I can talk to for hours, and that's how I enjoy spending time with them. And some of them I can just check in every week, and that's how I'm intentional with them. It depends, I guess.
Okay. I was just wondering if you wanted to expand on that.
So, Maddy, you mentioned that psychology is something you think about studying some more, and you're interested in the course this year. In February, you changed your thesis topic because you said you were passionate about these. Why are you passionate about these kinds of things?
I think because I needed it as a student, and it wasn't until I learned it from a more physical, fitness, athletic point of view that I learned my senior year that I should probably apply it to my academics as well. And then I just became passionate about that, and I should probably share this with other students that probably didn't know that either.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of any synonyms for self-discipline? If somebody said, I can remember a children's song, no, that's actually something else I was going to do. Sorry, I started a song, but answer your question, my question first about synonyms for self-discipline. I was going to give the answer. I'm sorry.
I've thought of this a lot. I can think of a couple. They're synonyms, but they're, I think, different.
Mm-hmm.
But self-control, diligence, and I'm blanking on the rest. I had 5.
Mm-hmm.
I can only think of two, I guess.
Yeah, and so self-control was the song, and it says it's just controlling yourself. That's self-control, that's self-discipline, and it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. And so what's that tell you about self-discipline or self-control if it's one of the fruits of the Spirit? Or I really should say the fruit of the Spirit, it's a singular.
I just think that it's important, and not to steal it from Harper's thesis, but the reason it's called the fruits of the Spirit is because it takes time to develop it, and not a vegetable of the Spirit.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah, so it takes time to develop good self-discipline, and as well as the other fruits of the Spirit.
Great.
Okay, so looking at the 5 types of motivation: reward-based, fear-based, achievement, power, affiliation. What motivates you?
Out of these? Probably a mix between like just general intrinsic motivation and achievement-based motivation.
Okay, good. I was trying to... And then on this reactive and proactive discipline, and then you're talking about sometimes our proactive discipline gets hijacked by a circumstance, and then we got to revert back to our reactive discipline. How can you, if it's reactive, how can you discipline to prepare for that?
I think if we're disciplined in everything else, like proactive and active, and if we're have enough self-control or diligence, then it'll just kind of not come naturally. Like we still have to work at it, but they all kind of work together. So
yeah, like dealing with rude people. I just don't know that there's any. How do I prepare for that?
I don't know.
Because I want to know. Okay, so keep going here. So you're talking about goals and being disciplined. You got to have discipline to meet those goals. So what is a goal you have for school? SFA, Axum Jacks. What's a?
I guess general, just to graduate and learn as much as I can about the world, and I guess my degree along the way.
Okay. Are you aware of what disciplines maybe that you've learned here that you can take with you there to achieve that goal?
Probably that procrastination isn't the best thing. And just to be diligent in my work.
Okay. And then spiritually, you're leaving the Ncaa bubble. Okay. You will experience, I guess, trials or temptations. 2 different things, but both affect you spiritually. So what are some spiritual disciplines, or what's maybe a motivation you have spiritually going into college, and then what are some spiritual disciplines to help you attain whatever goal you might have spiritually?
I think it'll be important for me to trust the roots that the Ncaa bubble has grown, and I'm honestly kind of excited for those trials. So, I don't know, just trust myself and what this school has taught me.
Okay. One last question, and then why? So we get into this self-discipline, and anything good that we do, our flesh, Satan or our flesh can twist it. And so how do we go? What are some ways in which self-discipline can get twisted into a bad thing?
I think if we're not rooted in God, or our eyes aren't on the Spirit, then our motivations can be bad, and then from that our like whole thought process and mind can turn bad, and I guess just from that our self-discipline will grow
Okay.
bad.
So I'm thinking, like, what bothered Christ most about the Pharisees? I mean, they were very disciplined people.
The falsities that they were spreading.
Well, what was their personal motivation for following the Torah? And
Fame and money, and like it being basically all about them.
yeah,
They were
arrogant.
selfish.
Yeah. So anytime so self-discipline can lead to good things, but it also can lead us to be puffed up and arrogant. So what can we do, I guess, to recognize that?
I don't know about something we can remind ourselves on, because usually when we're arrogant, we don't recognize it. So I guess I'd say just having like setting yourself up with good friends who will call you out on that, or tell you like, hey, you need to be a little more humble.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that fifth step, attain accountability. How have you attained accountability? Who do you look to for that accountability?
I'd say mostly my parents.
Do you always listen to them right then?
No.
So a lot of times when we're held accountable, we're pretty defensive, right? And then we step away from it and realize, okay, I was wrong, they were right.
Yes.
Which is another way in which to combat that arrogance. I think that's the only questions I have. Before you get to ask one.
Yes, before you get to ask one, I was kind of laughing earlier when I read this again. You mentioned, kind of in the middle of the paper, people label school as pain. So true. What would you say has been your most painful class here at Ncaa?
There's a couple.
Don't hold back.
I don't know. There's an obvious answer that they're trying to get me to say, but it wasn't a painful class. It was a fun class. I just didn't do my work. And it ended up poorly. That class was American history. Okay. I guess I'll say it. It was a fun class, but the homework wasn't fun.
Okay. I was just wondering, that stuck out to me. I was like, it's so painful. All right. Do you have any questions? You want to turn the tables on us?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. My question is actually the same for all of you, but it kind of applies in different ways, I guess. So y'all are all involved in somewhat different areas of the school, like coaching and teaching. So what has been your most embarrassing story at your time at Ncaa? Or a funny story?
Yeah, mine's easy. First year here, we had flag football in the fall, and I thought, well, I can play flag football. And I said, let me be the quarterback. You know, I'm picturing stand back there 5 seconds before they can rush, and you guys go out there and I'll just throw it. And I find out they rush so quick, and I've got to run all around, and I was way too old for that. But one time we were playing, and I was wearing shorts, and I got tackled where somebody tried to pull out the flag, and instead I heard a rip, but I didn't look. And I get home, and that was first half. And I played the second half, and I go home, and my back pocket had been totally ripped down, and my underwear was showing right through there. And nobody told me.
That is not nice.
That would be embarrassing.
Oh gosh, I have so many. I feel like I have a daily embarrassing moment. Okay, my first year here at the upper school, because I had taught at the grammar school before I moved up. So I moved up, and so of course I didn't know all the kids. And like the first or second week, I have afternoon duty. And you know how intense I can get if people don't behave or do what they were supposed to do, right?
I have no idea.
So anyway, I got my green sheet. I'm checking names in the off of who's supposed to be at afternoon duty. Well, I get to this name Logan, and poor Logan Ncaa. That's the only Logan I knew at Ncaa, and he's sitting in here at the computer when I leave to go to afternoon duty, and I just march over here, and I just chew him out in front of everybody. Get over here to... Well, it turns out there was another Logan at Ncaa who was supposed to be at afternoon duty and not Logan. And Logan Ncaa was very gracious, and he did the duty, even though it wasn't... I mean, that's how great a kid he is. And so I just felt like so small and so stupid.
I thought you were going to have a volleyball practice moment.
I am too. I can't share that. That's, yeah. What happens in volleyball practice stays at volleyball practice.
Which one?
I'll tell you later.
No one's hearing that.
I feel like I lucked out on this one because you said your time at Ncaa, and I haven't been here very long. And I can't really think of an embarrassing story while I've been here. I feel like I have lots in my life, but maybe not. I just haven't had enough time yet here. And I always feel like I'm just a hot mess anyway, so I just want to keep my head down and plow through the day. And I also feel like I'm going to have a lot of opportunity to come for embarrassing stories since my kids will be coming up through the school. I really can't, I'm sorry, I can't think of them.
Okay.
Unless you know one.
No. Not off the top of my head.
I can think times I've had to eat crow a little bit and had to, go crawling back and be like, I really apologize. I should not have done this. But maybe not so much embarrassing.
It's okay.
Sorry. Maddy, I've really enjoyed getting to know you this year. For me, I feel like that didn't even really start to happen until you changed topics. I just kind of thought that you were a little bit of a closed book and played your cards close to your chest. And so I think once we kind of cracked through, for me on my end anyway, that's when I felt like I started to get to know you more. And I really enjoyed my time that I spent with you. Very well done on your senior thesis.
Thank you.
Mr. Blackburn, would you close us in prayer?
Let's pray. Most holy God, we thank you for the time that we've had together, and we thank you for Maddy, and pray, Lord, that you guide her and direct her. Lord, I pray Philippians 4:8 over that whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's lovely, admirable, if anything's excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And Lord, that her motivations will come through thinking about you, thinking about what honors you and brings you glory. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.